guys, and welcome back to the Moaning Yorkshire, and welcome back here into the Cruel Corner. Unfortunately, there is no Cruel Corner episode this time around because the Formula E season came to a close a few weeks ago, sadly. It was a great nail-biting championship though, wasn't it? And it went all the way down to the wire, as Formula E tends to do. And yeah, it was very eventful at times, wasn't it? The whole season was. It had the turns and the twists like every other championship does. This season was very excessive though in that, wasn't it? So just when you thought someone had got the hand on the title, it slipped away with a silly spin, and it just all came to a head, didn't it? And yeah, ultimately it was a great season 10 for Formula E, and for that reason, you know, we're going to look forward to doing it again in season 11, the Cruel Corner that is, of course. And this episode in particular is going to be celebrating the 5 best drivers I thought delivered in season 10, and we're going to go in numerical order as well. It's not going to be like no particular order or things like that. We're going to go from 5 to 1. So look forward to that. So we'll be starting off at number 5 and working his way all the way to number 1. So we've got 22 drivers, of course, on the grid, and these are my top 5 that I think really delivered this season. You may be surprised to see some of the big names might be missing on this list, but at the end of the day, there'll be reasons for that, and I'm sure you'll understand. But yeah, these are the 5 that I think really delivered something special in season 10. So in 5th place, my number 5 on this list, I have gone for Nico Muller. Nico Muller in the App Cupra this year secured 52 points for that squad, and I think that's a mighty effort. The App Cupra car certainly got a lot better through the later stages of the season. He took numerous 6th place finishes in the final stages and final races of the season, and ultimately that meant that they netted themselves 9th in the constructors in the App Cupra car, and that was all mainly down to him because of his 52 points he awarded. He outscored both of the McLaren drivers, who scored 48 each. He was ahead of both Mahindra drivers. He was ahead of course, Daruvala in the Maserati. He was ahead of much quicker teams and cars and drivers that should have done more this season that necessarily didn't, and of course walked all over his teammate. Nico Muller has been a solid all-rounder this season, on his way to Andretti alongside Jake Dennis for season 11. That's a strong driver pairing, that. Andretti can never seem to get a secured, nailed down second driver at the side of Jake Dennis for a number of seasons now. I think Oliver Askew was the one that deserved another go, but they didn't. They decided to go for Lotterer, who was a total fail. And then, of course, we've had Norman Nato this season, who ultimately I think was offered a contract but didn't want to accept it. So that's an unusual one. But yeah, we've got Nico Muller in that Andretti squad, and I think he's going to deliver really, really well for that team, based on what he's done this season alone. Has been sublime in a car that's not been very efficient, in a car that's not had the overall pace in races or over a single lap in qualifying. He's delivered the points when it matters, rarely made a mistake, and that's why he's 5th on this list. Position 4, 4th place now we're coming to. It's going to be Edoardo Mortara. Fantastic effort this season by Edoardo Mortara, securing 29 points for the Mahindra squad, which meant that they were well clear of the ERT squad. I mean, both drivers only scored 23 in that team. But yeah, you know, Edoardo Mortara this year has delivered something really special. A massive turnaround to his fortunes last season in Maserati, where he was often found in or on a wall. There wasn't much else between him. It was just poor performances, silly contacts, silly errors, silly mistakes, and was rarely inside the points doing anything really good. He was just often always in trouble, and most of the time it was his fault as well. So the fact that Mahindra picked him up for this season, I was doubtful he was going to do anything. Admittedly, you know, the start to the season for Mahindra was incredibly slow. Points were very, very rarely available. It was just the pace of the car, the efficiency of the car as well was very, very lacking, similar to Muller and the Apt Cupra squad. But Edoardo Mortara, for me, has had a really good, solid season overall and really turned his fortunes around. Although Muller's got the same powertrain in his Apt Cupra as, of course, the Mahindra has, for me, Mortara's just been ever so slightly that impressive just because of the turnaround in his own fortune. It's like he's found his feet again. He's found his comfort zone within Formula E after such a difficult season the previous year. And he's never really made a mistake or put a foot wrong. He's been the victim of some silly incidents, of course, The likes of Tokyo, where he crossed the line in 6th and was disqualified for power overuse because there was an error on the software for the final lap where it overconsumed. So there was always points available. There were few and far between to start the season off with, but had the luck gone Mortara and Mahindra's way in those early stages, Mortara certainly would have had more points, and it was very rarely Mortara's fault as to why that didn't come to fruition, I should say. There was an incident where both Mahindras were taken out with Degrassi at one race, where both Mahindras looked to be on for points until that point. So yeah, Mahindra, 29 points I don't think tells the full story for Mortara. I would say over the course of the early phases of the season, there's certainly been another 15 to 18 points potentially gone missing over picking up the odd 4, 5. Of course, we know there's 8 went missing at Tokyo. Yeah, I think there should have been more on the cards for Mortara, but it wasn't his fault. He has delivered a solid string of results this season, and although it's not always been points, he's always been on the fringes of them and delivered some really good results. So yeah, Adwara Mortara, a fantastic season this season. Any incidents he did get caught up with were rarely his fault. He's rarely made a mistake. He's been the most impressive in qualifying in certain stages as well with that Mahindra car, and he's just delivered a fantastic season overall, and he deserves praising, and that's why he's my number 4 on this list. Into the top 3 now, and in 3rd position it is the championship winner. It is Pascal Wehrlein. Seems strange to see him down here in 3rd. You'd have thought, well, he's first, Josh, he won the championship, he wins it all. Yep, I totally agree with that, but he's 3rd on this list because we're not talking about the championship overall, we're talking about a full season together. And yeah, in real life he got the championship, but this season around, Wehrlein ultimately in that second half of the second stage of that season, where Da Costa was getting win after win after win after win, Wehrlein was doing what he needed in a championship point of view, which was just picking up the points when he needed to. But yeah, he was ultimately getting shown up by his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa. So it's an interesting one, really. I do heavily praise Wehrlein for this season. He's delivered some consistent results, and that's what's got in the championship at the end. But he's had a great flatline base. He's always done really, really well. His teammate, though, has had the wrong end of the stick in terms of luck and in terms of the FIA bullshittery. In terms of penalties throughout the season. The last round as well. It's just all went wrong for Da Costa. He had a struggling start where Wehrlein was on top, but then Da Costa did ultimately catch him up. So I'm not discrediting Pascal Wehrlein at all this season. He's done a stunning job and is the worthy champion this season. However, the reason why he's 3rd on this list is just because of that dip in form just as we started to get towards that second half of the second part of the season, if that makes sense, like 3/4 into the championship run. There was that dip in form where, for a championship point of view, okay, it wasn't fantastic, but he was scoring consistently, but it could have been more and he could have made it easier on himself for the championship overall. He did benefit from the likes of Cassidy's poor bad luck in Portland, where he had the spin on the last corner of the second to last lap, and then of course getting taken out by Da Costa was Cassidy in the last race at London, when that would have been Cassidy's championship after Evans and Wehrlein took attack mode. So he did scrape over the line somewhat. Admittedly, he thoroughly deserved that title, but had he just not had that little dip in form in that 3/4 of the phase of the season, it could have made it a lot easier on himself had he been taking the wins that Da Costa had. But again, I'm not discrediting him. This is all about praising here. This is all about praising. And Wehrlein has had a fantastic season. He's strung it together. He's kept it the most consistent. He's kept himself out of trouble. And even when his wings come off at Portland, where he really should have pitted, he kept going and secured a 4th place. That's a champion's drive right there, and he deserves the praise. And that's why he's 3rd on this list. Just trying to explain why maybe he's not a little bit higher than maybe people would think he should be. 2nd place and runners-up spot, we come to Jean-Eric Vergne in the DS Penske, a driver that didn't really have the car this year to compete for the championship, but did a great job in his entirety of the season. We saw 1 or 2 little errors from him in the penultimate round at London, where he dove bomb Daruvala was a bit silly, a little bit of over-ambition there. But, aside from that, he's walked all over his teammate Stoffel Van Dorn, who's Maserati bound for season 11 now. yeah, John O'Byrne has had a stunning season. Again, consistent, always getting the points, getting the podiums. He's delivered some great results this year for the DS Penske squad. In a car that towards the end of the season, you would say, if you'd have had the pace like that at the start of the season, it could have been maybe an outside championship contender going into the final few races. But as it was, he mathematically ended up there, didn't he? But it wasn't realistically possible. But yeah, Johnny O'Byrne, he has strung a solid season together for the DS Penske squad. Walked all over his teammate Stoffel van Dorn, who is a world champion in this championship in his own right as well, of course. Let's not forget that. Johnny O'Byrne, the double champion of seasons previous. And if he keeps that momentum going forward into season 11, if DS Penske keep building up their momentum as well, like they seem to be doing over the course of the season so far, this Gen 3 era with the new car coming in, the Gen 3 Evo it's called, maybe they can get on top of it, and I'm sure Johnny O'Byrne could be there, another title contender for season 11, because he's done well so far. He's delivered a stunning season this season. Again, rarely put a wheel wrong and has been Mr. Consistency throughout. It's just a shame that the car didn't quite have the pace to realistically have a shot at the title, but he did everything he could to stay in it as long as he could. So well done, Johnny O'Byrne. You're second on this list. And the winner, number one for me, P1, the best driver on the grid this season, has been Oliver Rowland. I mean, who else could it be? I know everyone's going to say not only British bias for this, but also Yorkshire bias. The lad from Barnsley has done good for that Nissan squad this year, hasn't he? What a season. What a season Oliver Rowland has had. There was a run of there where he just couldn't get off the podium. Could not get off the podium. And this is a Nissan car that at the start of the season didn't necessarily look like it could be a championship contender. No one really had Nissan on their sights as a championship contender. It was all about Porsche, Jaguar, and maybe DS Penske. Those were the words that was being spread around at the start of the season. They could be the three title challengers overall. No one ever really questioned Oliver Rowland. No one ever really thought about him. Ending season 9 early, a dejected driver, mutually agreeing to leave, I think it was in the end, with the Mahindra squad after such a frustrating season. He was fed up, he was annoyed. He comes into season 10 and people are thinking, well, how is he going to get on? How is he going to do? And he really delivered the goods, didn't he? He has done such a great job. A string of podiums. If it's not podiums, it's points. And the only reason he didn't go into the final rounds of the season realistically with a chance of the title was due to a energy issue in the Misano E-Prix, where basically he'd got the race won, but a miscalculation on the energy from the team, not Oliver Rowland, saw him park up by the wayside with half a lap to go. 25 points missing there. And then in the Portland E-Prix, the double header there, unfortunately had an ear infection, was unable to travel and wasn't well enough to travel over to complete that season. Where a race went there in race 1 of the Portland E-Prix, where hardly any of the title rivals scored points. If he'd have picked up a podium there, it'd have been one hand on the trophy for him. But we're never going to know, are we? And that's the unfortunate thing about it. So Oliver Rowland, yeah, it all came to a head, unfortunately. His season just didn't quite have the legs. He had the consistency, he had the pace, he had everything, but luck wasn't on his side this season, and that's a great shame. Oliver Rowland is my driver of the season overall. Like I said, had it not been for him missing the Portland doubleheader, and had it not been for that miscalculation at the Misano E-Prix with the team getting it wrong on percentage, so he was half a lap short basically. In theory there, quite easily with the pace that Oliver Rowland had. That was already 25 points missing from the first race. That one, the doubleheader, you could have said at Portland, that was 30 points, 2 third place finishers. Add those together, you've got yourself a champion for season 10 there. He got a little bit of a skirmish with the Costa, didn't he, at the second to last race at London. But again, even if that had happened in real life, where we'd have got where he never missed Portland or never missed the other races, he'd have still gone on to be a champion, I feel. Taking victory at the end in London really showed you what kind of season he has had. And Oliver Rowland, it can be no less than first place for me. Yes, British bias. Yes, Barnsley bias. But you offer me another driver that has delivered quite so much, when you expected so little. So everything, guys, those were my top 5 drivers of the Formula E season for season 10. Let me know in the comments section, do you agree with my top 5? Have I got all top 5 that you would have had? Maybe in a different order? Do you feel the likes of Nick Cassidy, Mitch Evans should be in this list, despite the fact that they've had some issues throughout the season? You know, do you think there's anyone there that I've totally missed out? Do you think Maxi Gunter deserves a shout in here despite his drop in form in the second half of the season and bad luck in London? Let me know. There's so many drivers on this list. There's 17 drivers I've not talked about yet, but there's a reason for that because I'm going to talk about another 5 of them in Friday's episode. That, of course, are my 5 worst drivers of season 10. So stick around for that for Friday, because that's going to be where it's going to get a little bit more brutal, shall we say. No disrespect or discredit to any drivers, of course. They're doing a job that I certainly can't do. But yes, we've talked about the 5 best. We've praised all them. Now it's time to shine a light on Friday's episode about the 5 worst drivers this season. As always, there is some honourable mentions there. Mitch Evans, Nick Cassidy, all had a great season. Antonio Felix da Costa, of course, had real unluckiness with the penalties that were dished out to him that was unfair, the disqualifications, etc. But he did have incredibly poor pace at the start of the season, to the point where we thought he was going to get replaced mid-season. That's how bad he was. So yeah, as always, let me know in the comment section below whether you agree with my top 5, and let me know what your top 5 would have been as well. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you all for Friday's episode where we talk about the 5 worst Formula E drivers. But for now, all that's left to say is much love.